Hello, my name is Austin Habish, the founder of Think Catholic, and you're listening to the Summa Theologica podcast, where we study St. Thomas Aquinas' Summa Theologiae in a way simple and insightful for anyone to understand. The Summa Theologica podcast is brought to you by Think Catholic. Taking two questions of the Summa a day, we'll seek to summarize St. Thomas's responses, discovering the brilliance of Aquinas. And his Catholic faith is day 154. So let's get started. We're covering today questions 72 and 73 of the secundae, that is, of reviling and of backbiting. The translation that I always use in these podcasts is the one generously provided to me by Ave Maria Press, the 5-volume set translated by the Fathers of the English Dominican province, which you can now get at a discounted price from Ave Maria Press's site by typing in the code SUMMA10. And so here we go. Article 1, whether reviling consists in words. St. Thomas says the contumelious are those who by word or deed revile and shame others. So reviling in the absolute broadest sense is dishonoring another by word or deed, and especially by words, as Aquinas continues, when a man publishes something against another's honor, thus bringing it to the knowledge of the latter and of other men, this is reviling properly. Compared with words, all other signs are very few, for words have obtained the chief place among men for the purpose of expressing whatever the mind conceives. Hence, reviling, properly speaking, consists in words. Article 2, whether reviling or railing is a mortal sin. In a word from St. Thomas, nothing but mortal sin deserves the eternal punishment of hell. Now, railing or reviling deserves the punishment of hell according to Matthew 5. Whoever shall say to his brother, "Thou fool," shall be in danger of hellfire. Therefore, railing or reviling is a mortal sin. And in a brief explanation from Aquinas, in sins of word, it seems that we ought to consider with what intention the words are uttered. Since then railing or reviling essentially denotes a dishonoring, if the intention of the utterer is to dishonor the other man, this is properly and essentially to give utterance to railing or reviling. And this is a mortal sin no less than theft or robbery, since a man loves his honor no less than his possessions. Article 3, whether one ought to suffer oneself to be reviled. Our Lord went as a lamb mute to the slaughter and taught us that if one strikes us on the right cheek, we need to offer the left cheek as well. However, our Lord, when he was struck, could justly say, "If I have spoken wrongly, bear witness to the wrong. But if I have spoken rightly, why do you strike me?" Therefore, we can say that one ought to be prepared to be reviled and suffer it patiently if it is unto the salvation of souls, including our own, and for the glory of God. However, if it is better for those standing by, better for the common good, that one defend themselves against the person shaming them, to set the record straight, or to prevent a scandal to the faithful, a doubting of the faith perhaps, then one ought to respond to such reviling. As Aquinas teaches, those who are so placed that their life should be an example to others ought, if possible, to silence their detractors, lest their preaching be not heard by those who could have heard it, and they continue their evil conduct through contempt of a good life. Article 4, whether reviling arises from anger. In a word from St. Thomas, while one sin may arise from various causes, reviling is closely connected with anger's end, which is revenge. Since the easiest way for the angry man to take revenge on another is to revile him. Therefore, reviling arises chiefly from anger. And with that, we move on to question 73 of backbiting or detraction. Article 1, whether backbiting is suitably defined as the blackening of another's character by secret words. To injure a person openly by words specifically pertains to reviling, like robbery when it comes to another's possessions, something done in plain sight. Then just as theft pertains to taking in secret, backbiting or detraction pertains to injuring someone's good name in secret or behind their back. Thus, our article's definition is correct. Backbiting is the blackening of another's character by secret words. Article 2, whether backbiting is a mortal sin. To destroy another's good name is worse than to destroy their physical property, because people love their reputation more than their things. A man hated by all, but with many possessions, would find that more grievous than the opposite. And so if robbery and theft can be mortally sinful, so too can backbiting. which we likely already know, but what we would like to know is when backbiting is not a mortal sin. And so I will quote St. Thomas at length here because of how terribly common gossip is in our society. Aquinas writes, "It happens sometimes that a man utters words whereby someone's good name is tarnished, and yet he does not intend this, but something else. This is not backbiting strictly and formally speaking, but only materially. And if such defamatory words be uttered for the sake of some necessary good and with attention to the due circumstances, it is not a sin and cannot be called backbiting. But if they be uttered out of lightness of heart or for some unnecessary motive, it is not a mortal sin, unless perchance the spoken word be of such grave nature as to cause a notable injury to a man's good name, especially in matters pertaining to his moral character, because from the very nature of the words, this would be a mortal sin." Article 3, whether backbiting is the gravest of all sins committed against one's neighbor. And our test for determining the gravity of a certain sin committed against our neighbor is given in the following words by St. Thomas. "The essential gravity of sins committed against one's neighbor must be weighed by the injury, since it is thence that they derive their sinful nature. Now the greater the good taken away, the greater the injury." And so what is the greatest good a man has? The grace of God, which is not taken away by backbiting, and actually no one can take away from another, since the grace of God must be lost voluntarily, either by the head of our race, which was Adam, or by ourselves as individuals if we sin mortally after receiving grace. Therefore, and this is just my opinion, not mentioned in the article, leading someone into heresy, so that they are tricked into stepping outside of grace, or by giving them a corrupted gospel so that they never receive grace, are probably the worst things you could do to a man. But again, that's all an aside. The list given by Aquinas here, beginning with the greatest injury down to the least, is the following. Murder is the most grievous, since it deprives man of the life which he already possesses. After this comes adultery, which is contrary to the right order of human generation, whereby man enters upon life. In the last place come external goods, among which a man's good name takes precedence over wealth, because it is more akin to spiritual goods. Wherefore it is written in Proverbs, "A good name is better than great riches." Therefore backbiting, according to its genus or category, is a more grievous sin than theft, but is less grievous than murder or adultery. Article 4, our last article, whether it is a grave sin for the listener to suffer or endure the backbiter. St. Jerome taught, "Take care not to have an itching tongue nor tingling ears, that is, neither detract others nor listen to backbiters." If you allow someone to gossip in front of you or with you about someone else, is that a grave sin to you? If one enjoys the gossip of another, they may sin even more grievously than the one gossiping, depending on the malice in their heart. And if they do not confront the gossiper, while it is their office or position in the community to do so, to not allow such talk in their presence, and so that it could cause scandal, then this also would be mortally sinful. But if one is not in a position required to rebuke such gossip, nor do they enjoy the gossip, yet also do not ask the backbiter or gossiper to stop due to some kind of human fear or the like, then it may only be a venial sin. As Aquinas states, if, however, the sin is not pleasing to him, and he fails to withstand the backbiter through fear, negligence, or even shame, he sins indeed, but much less than the backbiter, and, as a rule, venially. And with that, we come to the close of another episode. We have just finished covering questions 72 and 73 of the Secunda Secundae, that is, of reviling and of backbiting. My name is Austin Habish with Think Catholic, and I cannot wait to see you tomorrow.